Mr. Clooney, welcome to Meet the Press.
Thank you, Chuck.
Let me start with dinner you co-hosted on Friday night. Big fundraiser I know that you have planned for later tonight. Do you look at how much is being raised? And I think the co-host of the Friday night dinner, $353,000 a couple to be a co-chair. Do you look at it yourself and think that's an obscene amount of money?
Yes. I think it's an obscene amount of money. I think that, we had some protesters last night when we pulled up in San Francisco, and they're right to protest. They're absolutely right. It is an obscene amount of money. The Sanders campaign, when they talk about it, is absolutely right. It's ridiculous that we should have this kind of money in politics. I agree completely.
It was interesting. Our camera caught you having a conversation with the protesters last night. What did you say to them?
Well, that was the funniest thing. I went over to try to talk to him. And he said I was some corporate shill, which, if you know me, that's one of the funnier things you could say about me. And then he just said, you sucked as Batman. And I was like, well, you kind of got me on that one. And then I walked away, and that was basically it. But I think what's important, and what I think the Clinton campaign has not been very good at explaining is this, and this is the truth. The overwhelming amount of money that we're raising, and it is a lot, but the overwhelming amount of the money that we're raising is not going to Hillary to run for president. It's going to the down ticket. It's going to the congressmen and senators to try to take back Congress. And the reason that's important, and the reason it's important to me, is because I'm a Democrat, so if you're a Republican, you're going to disagree, but we need to take the Senate back, because we need to confirm a Supreme Court justice, because that fifth vote on the Supreme Court can overturn Citizens United and get this obscene, ridiculous amount of money out, so I never have to do a fundraiser again. And that's why I'm doing it.
So you don't enjoy doing these fundraisers?
No, I don't think anybody does. I don't even think politicians do. I'm sure you've covered them before. Right. It's not the most fun thing to do. I spend probably a quarter of my time now raising millions and millions of dollars to fund my foundation, which is basically chasing and looking for money that these corrupt politicians all around the world are hiding. The Panama Papers have been actually incredibly helpful. We have forensic accountants. So this is all a very big part of things that are important to me. I really want Citizens United. I think it's the worst, one of the worst laws passed since I've been around.
Bernie Sanders, obviously you noted that his campaign was criticizing this, and he was asked about your fundraiser specifically, and he backed off.
Sure.
And he said this.
So it's not a criticism of Clooney. It is a criticism of a corrupt campaign finance system where big money interest, and it's not Clooney, it's the people who are coming to this event, have undue influence over the political process.
Do you think people that are coming to your event tonight and went last night, that they think they're going to get extra access to Hillary Clinton, to a President Clinton?
No, I actually don't think that's true. I think there is a difference between the Koch brothers and us. The difference is, if we succeed in electing an entire Congress, which would be quite a success, but a Senate and a president, the tax policies that they would enact would probably cost us a lot more money. Quite honestly, the Koch brothers would profit if they get their way, and that's what there's no profit for us in this. Understanding this, Koch brothers have said that they're going to spend $900 million not on the presidency, but on the down ticket, on the senators and the congressmen and the gubernatorial races and the local races, and so our job is to try and counter that in some way.
You had actually plenty of nice things to say about Bernie Sanders. I think you did an interview with The Guardian where you said you liked the issues he was bringing up. You thought he was actually pushing Hillary Clinton in a certain way. Why? I am curious. Why did you pick Clinton over Sanders?
Well, I've worked with Secretary Clinton as a secretary, particularly in when the Sudan and South Sudan were looking to vote for their own independence. And it was an incredibly dangerous time for that country. And there were hundreds of thousands of people's lives at risk, and between the Secretary and the Security Council and some of the people on the ground, and Kofi Annan and Jimmy Carter and people like that, and thousands of people on the ground, we worked very hard to make sure that that didn't happen. She understood it. She understood the issues, even though we don't have any great reason to pay much attention to Sudan. We don't trade with them. We don't get money from them. I found her to be knowledgeable and to be and to care about the issues. And we've worked together since then, and I've been a very big fan of hers. But I want to say this. I really like Bernie. I think what he's saying in this election is important if you're a Democrat, again, to have these conversations. I hope he stays in for the entire election. And if he were to win the nomination, I will do whatever I can, including if asked, a fundraiser like this, again, to try to keep to try to give him or her, Hillary, I hope she wins, a Senate, because honestly, we see what happens when a president tries to get their Supreme Court justice confirmed without the Senate.
You've minced no words about your feelings about Donald Trump. I think you called him a xenophobic fascist. I hope I'm quoting you correctly.
I think you're pretty close.
Okay, fair enough. What have your interactions been with him? You ever had any personal interaction with him?
I met him once. I was sitting down at a table. He was nice, and we talked a couple of times, I think, and then he went on Larry King and told everybody I was very short, which I said, I met you sitting down. But no, it's not about that. Here's the point about what's going on right now. On the other side, Trump and Cruz are making this a campaign of fear. We have to be afraid of everything. We have to be afraid of refugees. We have to be afraid of Muslims. We have to be afraid of minorities. And the question is, and this is an important one, are we really going to be scared of the very things that have made our country great? And if the answer is yes, then we have history to answer to, because we're not afraid. We are not a country. We are not a country that is afraid, and I refuse to accept that.
Why do you think fear has been working, at least in the Republican Party?
Because fear has always worked in one way or another. In elections, fear has always been a great, one of the great tools of any election. But the reality is, we are not the descendants of fearful people. We're not. So no, we're not going to ban Muslims from this country. That's never going to happen. And we're not going to go back to torture. And we're not going to kill the families of terrorists or suspected terrorists, because that is not who we are. And if we did, we would make our grandparents and their parents would be ashamed of us.
I'm curious, Hollywood and a lot of movie studios were very aggressive in putting pressure on the governor of Georgia to veto a bill that would have perhaps made it easier to discriminate gays and lesbians and transgender folks. Some of that same pressure is being applied to North Carolina. First of all, do you approve of pressure like that, number one? And what do you make of the North Carolina law?
Well, I'm a protester from where I got arrested in D.C. a couple of years ago with my father protesting. I'm a big believer in protest. I think it matters. From the 56 Montgomery bus protest to the apartheid protest that I was a part of when I was a young man. But I find these to be really effective because these are big corporations that are protesting. And when you have IBM and Walmart, of all people, and General Electric and people like that coming at you, it affects people. And you can see it because we saw it with Mike Pence in Indiana. We saw it with Jan Brewer in Arizona. I think they can have some great effect. And I think the law is ridiculous, of course.
All right. George Clooney, I've kept you long enough. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chuck. I appreciate it.
You got it. As you saw there, that was George Clooney, a Clinton supporter, striking an unusually conciliatory tone towards Bernie Sanders these days. But Thursday night's debate between the candidates got pretty heated, and it was not so conciliatory.
Wait a minute.
That's just not accurate.
I have stood on the debate stage with Senator Sanders 8 prior times.
Excuse me.
I have said the
Secretary,
exact same
Senator,
thing.
please. There you go. The New York primary is